What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Two Young Pastors Podcast. My name is Elijah, and I'm here joined by my amazing co-host, Jawan. We are two young pastors, and we just love talking about what our lifestyle looks like, what ministry looks like, what the Christian lifestyle looks like in this century, excuse me, because it looks different, man. Being a Christian looks different in every era. And we were talking about what the dynamics look like a bit because there's some stuff out right now. And every Christian has something to say about it. Like
Yeah.
whether it's a new song that dropped, or a new like if there's a big situation or an artist drops something or says something, there always seems to be like two sides in the Christian world.
Yes.
One either supporting the action, and then one saying you need to distance yourself away from that person or that thing because that's not what God wants us to do. And a
Yeah.
lot of it has to deal with how we deal with culture, man. So, uh, uh, before we go into talking about Christianity, how our faith impacts culture, and that whole conversation, it's super important. But man, how have you been, bro? How was your weekend? And then we'll get into it.
Been good. Been good. Very busy time. Happy May. We're
Happy
actually
May,
recording this on Cinco de Mayo. And so
bro.
and
I
so
completely forgot.
happy Cinco de Mayo. May the 5th. May the 5th. Happy, 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 happy.
Yeah,
And we celebrate our brothers and sisters across the different of that heritage. We celebrate you and your independence. But
yeah.
doing good. Man, of course, if you know us, football is a thing. We care about it.
Mhm.
The draft just took place.
It did.
Last week of April,
Yeah,
and so a very big weekend. And of course, I think the Ravens did an amazing job of drafting some really good
I haven't paid
talent.
attention at all.
I have, and of course, since we're talking about culture and our lives, and things that are important to us as pastors, one of the things that's so crucial about this draft is that it was kind of controversial for the Ravens, um,
Mm.
because the Ravens actually drafted an individual who has some allegations. He has some sexual allegations.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
he has some allegations. And I know YouTube has like a thing about like what words you can say and what words you can't say.
Right.
So I'll just say that there are some allegations um, that were placed against him. He didn't nothing charged. He wasn't charged, but allegations from high school and then from college,
Mm.
and don't know how true they are. But if you understand what's going on with Justin Tucker, and like the
Hmm.
situation that's been
Hmm.
happening or that he's been accused of, you know,
Right. Right.
as a number of fans just questioning, well, Ravens, you did say you have a zero tolerance policy,
Policy.
and yeah, you had a person already who many fans are like, hey, the fact that there are even this many individuals who have come up and said something about him, should let him go. But to
Yeah.
then draft someone else, you know,
Mm.
who has a checkered history.
Yeah.
It's just like, do you really care about these things that you say you care about?
Yeah.
So I think it's so important for a lot of reasons. Don't have time, I think, today, because it's not what our focus is on today. But I would love for us to talk about it, because while that happened, someone like Shador Sanders, right? Deion Sanders' son,
Right.
he got drafted, right? But he was projected to be, many people thought he would be a first rounder. I think I was like, no, he's second, third round
Hmm.
talent. He's not that
Right.
good. He didn't get drafted until the fifth
The
round.
very end. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so there were a lot of individuals, saying things like, "Is this racist? Is this racist?" Like, like,
Did you see what
are
happened, bro?
huh? What do you mean?
There was an article that got dropped that said there might have been a like a underlying guideline that they wouldn't draft him until the end.
Whoa. Oh, collusion.
Terms.
Uh, I did hear something like
Oh,
I did hear something like that. I
yeah.
mean, we we don't know if it's true, but like, I mean, I wouldn't put it past anyone. Like,
Alright.
just the same league that didn't give Colin Kaepernick an opportunity to come back to
Right.
quarterbacking after what happened. But it's not as black and white as some people think.
Mhm.
Hey, um, I am an Afro pessimist. I recognize that Shador is a black man, and because of that, he got to come a certain way. He got to come a certain
Mhm.
way for a league that is whose primary audience is middle-aged white men.
Right.
Um, and so, I understand that. But like
You have to watch the ratings.
another day. Conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
bro, doing all right. And there's so much going on. And I'm just happy to talk about the fact that like my entire life is not church. I love culture and I love different things outside of church. And so football is one, and I think we're going to get into another topic today. That's
Yeah.
another one. So that's how I'm doing. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. Here in the office again. But we're getting ready for some things this Friday night. So just here. Uh, had a great weekend, man. We had a brunch here in the office, with a few of our young adults, man. Just talking, having some breakfast, some lunch food. It was just great. A bit tired this Monday, but outside of that, man. I'm looking forward to this week. I think it's gonna be a really good week, a really productive week. Family's doing well, bro. Like when I say I cannot think of too many things that's bad.
Yeah.
Like I told this to a member. I said life is gonna always throw some stuff at you, but you want to enjoy the pauses in the chaos,
Hmm.
because it's gonna come, right? A matter of when, and it feels like I'm gonna pause right now, where the storm is calm, things are good, and I'm gonna enjoy this pause as much as I can because
Yeah.
I know something's gonna pop up somewhere, and then it's gonna throw me in a tailspin.
Yeah.
So I'm just enjoying the pause right now, bro. But we were talking before we started recording, man. There's a movie out right now that is drawing a lot of attention. The title of the movie even caught me. Where it was just so overt that if you are religious on any platform or any scale, right, and you are on that scale, even on the smallest part of it, if you heard the title "Sinners," right, it just automatically sparked like a all right, I'm listening. Now, where are you going with this?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of feedback from all sides. But what's really interesting is that there's a lot of different responses in the Christian community, bro, on Sinners.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched it yet. And the only reason I haven't watched it is because I don't like horror movies, man.
Hmm.
Like I don't like the jump scares. I'm the guy that yells in the theater when there's a jump scare, and Leah like is ashamed of me. Like she'll like be like, "Oh my gosh, did you just scream?" And like I'll
So you
yell.
also
I
don't like
go,
thrillers then. You don't like thrillers either.
I can barely do thrillers.
Yeah.
Barely do thrillers.
Yeah.
But I just can't do the monster faces. I can't do like the scary stuff in the dark. Like I'm already scared of the dark as a kid,
Mhm.
and like I'm just leaving that. So like if you tell me there are more things in the dark, I'm gone. Like don't like like
Yeah,
don't add me into it. But you watched it, bro. What you got going on? Like
I
what's your
did.
initial? Yeah.
I did. And so, real quick, here's your warning. All right. In this conversation, I am liable to give spoilers about this movie away. And so, if you have not seen it, but you want to see it, you should click off. You should click off. You should click off. But
Yeah.
I'll say this. We're pastors, of course, we're believers. Um, I went to see the movie, of course, because like my fiance Janelle, she actually wanted to see it.
Yeah.
I don't think I was as interested because I actually didn't know what the movie was about beforehand. I didn't know what it was about beforehand. Um, I honestly thought that it was probably another telling of historical events that took
Mm,
place back in the day. And so when I heard that, I was just like, I don't have it in me right now to be heavy, to be heavy. There's a lot going on in life, and I
mm.
just can't handle I can't handle another story.
More.
Um, another like story where we're getting like a good trauma dump of history on what happened to our people because it's so close. So initially I was like, ugh. And then people were like, it's actually about this. And I still was just like, I'm good. Like I'm good off of vampires. Like I feel like it's been done so many times.
You don't like zombies and
And
vampires, bro?
huh?
No zombies or vampires for you?
I just think that like it's tired. It's tired. You
It's
know,
overplayed?
like as a heavy anime lover, okay?
Oh.
I love anime. All right,
Mhm.
grew up on it, and so like because of that, I know so many different types of power systems and different types of monsters and spirits and um um mythical, creatures that it's like there are more things that we can do, that are cooler than
Yeah,
vampires at this point.
yeah.
And so I was just like, yeah, but Janelle wanted to see it. And,
Mhm,
she's one of those individuals that's like, hey, we support our people, as in black people, right?
mhm.
And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go watch it. So we went to watch it, and bro, really good movie. Really, really, really good movie.
So
Okay.
pause. So different people have different ideas of what a good movie is. Are you talking about the writing? Are you talking about the production, the
Yeah.
quality, the acting? Like what aspect are you saying it's a good movie?
So, for let's start with genre, right?
Yeah.
Horror movies. A lot of people don't know this, but horror movies are typically like the some of the most critical, like type of like critiquing movies on a part of society, right?
Mhm.
A lot of horror movies really critique some part of society in some way, like beyond like the disgusting stuff that's typically happening in the movie. Like when I think of stuff, I think about like Saw,
Mhm.
Little Chucky, stuff like that. A lot of these movies, they're not like beyond entertainment. They're trying to critique like capitalism or
Right.
like the insurance industry and
Right.
talk about how predatory a number of these places and institutions are. And so, from my point of view, when it came to how it used evil spirits, vampires as an allegory, um, for what we're going to talk about soon. Um, and the symbolism, I said, "Oh, this is great. This is great." So just from like a horror standpoint, great. And I mean, like it's vampires. You can't really get too horror-y with vampires. They suck blood. But the thing about
Yeah.
vampires is I don't know who did it. I don't know when it was done, but like someone made vampires sexy. Like at some
Yeah,
point,
they put from pale skin, yeah, to
like,
yeah.
bro, I don't know who did it, but when
Yeah.
vampires became like these sex symbols that are just here to seduce you, like, yeah. So like vampires sexy, and the movie was very sensual. The movie was extremely sensual because of it.
Mhm.
Okay. But um when we talk about acting, like Michael B. Jordan, spoiler alert, he actually plays two brothers. One's brother's
Mm.
name is Smoke. Another brother's name is Stack.
And he
Okay,
plays both of them.
he plays both of them. He plays both of them.
Mhm.
So they're twins. They're twins, and he plays them. And if you know Smoke and Stack, you know it's also from a classic song back in the day, classic blues song back in the day. But that's not the point. The point is that he played these two brothers. His acting was great because like the two brothers obviously had two different demeanors, two
Mhm.
different priorities, and things like that. So he played those, then you had like different individuals in the supporting cast. Haley Steinfeld. I don't know the vampire's name. but he did a great job. He played um, someone who was Irish,
Mm,
which has had a lot of different parts in the movie. It just has so much that you can
mhm.
unpack. And so the acting was good. There was music and singing in it, which was amazing and phenomenal.
Really?
Um, and the camera shots, like the artistic choices that the director Ryan Coogler that he
Mhm,
made, like
mhm,
the choices that he like picked, amazing, amazing, bro, amazing.
mhm.
Um, and so even like understanding the reason the name Sinners,
Yeah.
like it fits if you understand
Mm,
what the movie was trying to portray, what it was trying to
okay,
portray.
okay.
So altogether, good
Good
movie,
one.
really good movie. It didn't excite me, but it was a good movie. It was a really good movie. So yes,
Mhm.
I want to say that.
What would you say is your takeaway? Like, I know that, there's a debate behind it, with people looking at different aspects of it and finding things, as they reflect. Like, what is your initial takeaway, uh, after saying, "Hey, it's a good movie"? Like, what's your initial takeaway, not thinking about the debates, but what's your, like, initial takeaway with what the director thought, uh, you should be walking away with?
Yeah. So one, I gotta say this. One, I think people miss this, but black art and specifically black music is is so precious. It's so precious, right? Specifically the blues, so
Mhm.
precious, right?
Yeah.
And what I would add on to that is that it's so precious that it must be protected. It
Mhm.
must be protected. And I think that that is really what I think that that's really what Ryan Coogler, what he wanted you to walk away understanding and knowing that not only is Black art amazing and it's beautiful and it's valuable, but it's something that needs to be protected. It needs to be
Mhm.
protected. And what
Mhm.
and I think you can say typically what it needs to be protected from is anti-whiteness. Anti-blackness, which is
Mhm.
often um what it needs to be protected from anti-blackness, which is often stem from uh, a certain group of people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, I think that that was my initial takeaway. Like,
Yeah.
hey, this movie is great for the culture, is great for Black people, and yeah, man, it's complex. It's so complex because you see
Mhm.
nuances
Yeah.
within the movie. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, like,
and I
so
oh yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, no.
And here's the reason why I say this. I say this because different individuals will have different reactions,
Right.
right? Because obviously it is a very black movie. Okay,
Mm.
so depending on how you view black people, either you're gonna you know um,
Why'd you
like
say it like that?
because on Twitter or X, there were several individuals um, who are MAGA, who easily were hating on the movie,
Mm.
right? Um, and so you got different individuals, but also, and this is where I'm interested in your thoughts as
Yeah.
a believer, as a Christian, man.
Mhm.
You know, the fact that it's considered a horror movie, the fact
Yeah.
that there are vampires and evil spirits
Mhm.
in the movie, right?
Yeah.
That elicits a certain reaction
It
from
does.
the Christian community. And
Yeah.
so, I know you haven't seen it, but have you seen anyone talk about it?
I have.
And what has been your take, from what public reception appears to be at this point?
Man, it has been mixed, bro. Like, again, I have not watched it, and I don't think I will, only because of the horror genre that it falls into. Nothing behind the controversy behind it. I just am not a horror
Scared,
guy.
scared, scared.
I am. I am. I am. I'm not gonna lie. I'm soft on this one, bro. I'm soft. I'm soft. Like Like I just can't do jump scares. I can't do like images of monsters. It just sticks with me a bit too much.
Yeah.
I'm already scared of the dark, right? So if you're telling me there are more things in the dark, I'm not gonna sit there and just get more afraid of it.
Yeah.
Um, but outside of that, like I've heard the reactions really go both ways, and it has like when you said that the director, right, was trying to give the idea of protecting black art and black music, right? Because the blues, right, is really the most authentic form of American music, right? Like everything else was inspired from outside of America in terms of art. But when we talk about the history of music, if you've ever been in a class about music, right? Like that is the purest form of
Mhm.
it. And when we're talking about that, that makes sense. In every one of the reaction videos I've seen, bro, that has not ever popped up. Like that that f- that perspective never came up. It was more about, hey, as Christians, do we go see a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
Which is what most conversations are. It's like, hey, do we want to go see a vampire movie? Do we want to go see a movie? I- I'm not too sure about what exactly the characters were, but I heard one commentator say, hey, the main character's dad was a preacher, and the dad said not to go to this place, and he went and he opened up the door to the evil spirits coming into his life, and it really does remind or give a pause to the believers that we're called not to go into some areas and open ourselves to some things, and and he is an example of opening ourselves up to some things and then facing the consequences uh, uh, of not listening. So that is one of the reactions I heard. Again, I haven't watched it,
Mhm.
and it didn't fit to what you just said about what the director wants you to leave with. But I've heard that, and then I've also heard, hey, the movie dives into um, voodoo in a way that a lot of the believers online, especially like Christian influencers, weren't comfortable with. And then even seeing uh, the post movie interviews with the actors that were a part of it, that were like more or less like saying, "Hey, like I could see the healing part of this, the spiritual nature of the spells that we did, da 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 da, and the chants and everything. They were real, and the way that it does, da da da, and it was beautiful." I saw Christian influencers take that as well and say,
They took
"Hey,
stuff out
like,
of context. They took stuff out
huh?"
of context. They took stuff out of context.
So like again, I have not watched it, but the way that it's being portrayed is, hey, you should not be watching this, number one, because of the stuff it'll open you up to, right? And because of the realness of some of the methods that the production crew went through to make it real, which is what a good professional in that industry would do, right? Uh, Regardless of what their spiritual stances were, right? And then on the other hand, the Christians that went and watched it, they were like, "Hey, this is a cautionary tale of what we can take away from it." So I kind of heard both of those, of why you should go or why you should not go. And then I also heard some people that have never watched it and said, and I'm never gonna watch it because I heard this, this, and this, and this, and I'm not gonna watch it because God doesn't want us to go and watch those things. So I've heard the spectrum of stuff, bro. I'm
Yeah.
just soft. I just don't like horror movies.
Dude, and here's the thing. I think all those things are respectable. A lot of times what I've seen is that individuals will often use um the situation that took place where in the gospels God taught, hey, you know, you expel a demon. They expelled the demon out of the individual. But
Mhm.
what ended up happening is that because the individual did not, fill themselves back up with Christ, then what ended up happening is that, you know, because the demons saw that the house was empty and that it didn't have God in there, that they got more
Different.
demons,
Yeah.
and they came back in and they came back in. And they typically use that instance, that story, to kind of sort of illustrate the dangers of of I guess gateway activities, gateway sins. Because they
Mm,
say, hey, if you don't do it, if you don't completely cut yourself off from it, then
you
you're gonna
can.
it's gonna get worse. It's gonna lead to
Yeah.
something worse. Look at scripture. Look what happened here. And here's what I say. Here's what I want to say. You know, one, the question has to be, you got to question. One, is this a sin? Is watching this a sin? Because it's a movie. It's not real. It's a sin. It, it, I, I don't know if that's
That
I don't know
felt too
if that's
simple. That felt too
like
simple.
I don't know, like this is a entertainment. It's a critique, on something that's taking place in real life, and
Mhm,
it's using vampires as an allegory, right? As a symbol for something that is taking place in the real world,
mhm,
using um real practices at times. There are some individuals who are into voodoo. There are individuals who are spiritual, right? It is a very active part of the Black experience,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And here's the thing: no matter, like, say what you will, this is a part of Black history, right? The usage of different rituals and the usage of different chants. That's African history.
mhm,
It is. And so I recognize that to a certain extent, it has been extremely demonized by Christianity,
mhm.
and I would say white evangelical evangelicalism, which is kind of redundant saying white evangelicalism, right?
We gotta roll with
Um,
all this. Yeah.
but it has been demonized a lot, and it has been misunderstood. And I'm not saying, hey, we should do that, but no, I would say, hey, you should probably read up on it a little bit more, so that you can really understand what was going on, and why certain individuals were using certain things.
Right.
Um, so, but I would also say this. I would also say this. Indeed, the main character, or the center character, right? You can tell he was, which is why the you can tell the movie was about music, because he is the center character. His dad was a preacher, pastor, and I think that this is such a part of the Black experience, because there
Mhm.
are so many different artists within the Black community who made it big because they started in church.
Right, right, right.
Like, so many different individuals, from Beyonce, Whitney Houston, Luther Van, like, you can tell the difference between a person who didn't go to church versus a
Mhm.
person who did go to church. Because, like,
Mm.
a person who did go to church, they don't just sing, they
They can.
sang.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like like a chair is a chair. When Luther said that, like it had soul in it. It had
Mhm,
soul, like the way that people sing. And here's, like okay, because people today, we still got amazing artists, but, like, it's missing some of that ooh, that
mm,
just be there back in the day. And
mhm.
why is that? It's because a lot of the people today, they didn't grow up in church. They
Went
didn't
to
grow up
church.
in
Yeah,
church.
yeah.
And so, like, they're talking about a very real thing, and I believe I was uh having a conversation with a few people about it, and they're saying that to a certain extent, it seems like they're basing this off of the life of, like, Robert Johnson. He was an
Mm,
individual who, quote unquote, sold his soul to the devil, because he went into the music industry, and did that. And typically, that's what people often frame it now. If you
think,
leave
right.
church and then you go into, like, the music industry now, they typically say, "Oh,
You
you
sign on
sold
the contract. Yeah.
it," right? And here's the thing. I recognize that there are several individuals who have indeed left the church and who have gone on to make great art in different spaces. Art that, let's be honest, a lot of Christians don't agree with. You
Right.
know, like
Right.
we can't agree with individuals making songs about sex, you know,
Mhm.
because we feel a little weird about that. It's hard
Right.
to hear people make songs about love. Like, and here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think that there is like this scary thing that we don't talk about where individuals are like, "Hey, we don't want you to go into this industry at all." Like,
Mm.
they don't even hear the songs that you're singing. They're just like, "If it's not about God, you don't need to be making it." And that's a
Mm.
scary thing for me.
Yeah, I've heard so like what opened up my mind to that debate really is I was listening to something about Martin Luther when he would take bar songs that were
Mhm.
it, at that
They
time,
don't know
right?
this though. They don't know this though, Elijah.
Right.
They don't know.
Yeah, songs and then literally write them with scriptural stuff, words, and then make them into hymns that we sing now, right? But the tunes and things like that were really like played in bars, and I think an element of what we forget is that while Christ says, or while the New Testament says that we are more than conquerors, a conquering spirit is
Mhm.
what we're given, man. And I think what a part of the cultural talk that we're in right now is what parts of the culture can we conquer for Christ, right? Like, what part of the culture are we able to go out and co-opt and say, hey, like you're doing well and this, you're singing about this well, right? But then does everything that we have um at the end of the day, everything we do is for the glory of God, right? Eat or drink or whatever. A part of what one artist said is that some songs don't have to be overtly spiritual in nature, but listening to songs that just make you happy or talk about
Uplifting.
happiness,
Yeah.
uplifting songs, right?
Purpose.
Uh, right, like love between a father and their daughter, right? I forgot that song that like are sung at weddings when the father has the dance with his daughter. That's a song that a lot of us attribute to a relationship between God and us, but really that song really is like a father giving away his daughter in a wedding,
Mhm.
right? Like, do we then go as Christians and say, "Hey, you can't write that song because it's not about God"?
No,
It
no, they don't. Unless they're like super conservative. But
right, like where like a part of the conversation that I think we are trying to go into, right, is like at what point are we limiting the creativity that God has given us,
Mm,
right? Like everything is worship, right? That we do is a part of our worship to God,
yeah.
right? That we can't deny, but is writing a song about the way that you love your wife,
Hmm.
right? Or the way that you might love your family,
Mhm.
right? Is that something that really I don't hear a lot of the conservative Christians talk about it. I can understand some of the limits, right, on the far end, on the edge, right, that like that we as a community are like, hey, some of those principles might not align with our lifestyle, right? That that I think is more open to conversation. But if
Makes
you're
sense.
a yeah, but if you're attacking someone and giving and I hate the way that we always try to say, oh, they sold their soul to the devil. I don't always buy into that. Like if someone leaves the church, they leave the church.
Mhm. And here's the thing. Here's like talking about symbolism, right? Because the church is supposed to be a safe space, right? Now, here's what's interesting, okay? Because in the movie, I think what this movie does, it kind of sort of juxtaposes two places that are considered safe spaces for people. One, of course, is the church, because
Mhm.
historically, the church has indeed been a safe space for several Black people. But then what they do is they juxtapose it to the opposite side with what history tells us is a juke joint, right? Juke joints. If you watch several old Black movies, or if you just look it up in history, what you'll find is like a juke joint was like a space, typically a small, intimate space where Black people could essentially go to after a long week. All right, it was
Mm.
typically Black. It was Black owned, may have had like a couple of sprinkles of diversity here and there, but it was typically a very Black space. Okay, and if you weren't Black, like the chances of you being there were rare. And so
Mhm.
like you really had to like show that you were for the culture. Okay, and so like they juxtapose these two spaces, because one space for the church is safe in a way, because like, hey, if you are a sinner, this is where you can find like-minded
Right.
people who want to be like you, because we're trying to pursue righteousness through Jesus,
Mhm.
in Jesus Christ. However, there was this other place that was juxtaposed, which is the juke joint, which is often looked down upon by Christians. Okay, even though it's considered a safe space, because this is where Black people could sing their music, because blues started with African Americans. It started with Black
Mhm.
people, bro.
Mhm.
And so like it's something that where we can be us, where we you can get away from like the racism and the segregation of the regular world.
Mm.
You're not getting criticized by white people for what you're listening to and how loud you are. Like, no, this is a safe space where you're not concerned about lynchings. This is a safe space where you're not concerned about individuals trying to take advantage of you. There is no different bathrooms here. Like there's
Mm.
only one bathroom, because at the juke joint, like that we're safe. At the juke joint, we can be ourselves. At the juke joint, we can be who we are. And
Right.
the problem is with the juke joint is that at the juke joint, you're safe to be sinners,
Mm.
right? And so it's interesting because we have two safe spaces, but I think what they were kind of sort of highlighting is that at times, like one safe space, which is the church, can feel like it's not a safe space, because the main character was Sam. He was a musician,
Mhm.
played the bass, right?
Mhm.
But the problem is that like his father did not want him to play secular music at all.
Mhm.
And so because of that, like he was put at odds with his dad, and the person who was supposed to be a safe space, and the place that was supposed to be a safe space was no longer that for him.
Mm.
But the individuals who did take him in, the individuals who did love how he played, because he was playing soulful music that talked about their experience, soulful music that reflected on what they were going through at that point in time. He was
Yeah.
playing that. The people who did accept it were the individuals who were at the juke joint.
Mhm.
But the only problem with the juke joint is that even though it's a safe space, not all safe spaces are places that hold people accountable. And
Mm.
so even though he indeed was able to sing his music, he was also able to get mixed up in some
Mm.
stuff that he wasn't supposed to be in. Which is why some individuals, even in the juke joint, were trying to look out for him and say, like, yo, you don't need to be down here. This is
Yeah.
not the place where you're supposed to end up. Like,
Mm.
there are better opportunities for you out there. And there were like Michael B. Jordan, one of the characters, because he played brothers.
Mhm.
One of the brothers actually wanted him to leave the juke joint,
Really?
because he knew that it was nothing for him there. He knew it.
Wow.
And so I think that like it's so crucial, especially for believers, because there will be some individuals who will have talent, who will have talent upon talent upon talent. And see, if you do not create a space for them to utilize that talent where you are, then they will find a place to use it somewhere else.
Mhm.
But I will also say this, even when individuals do find a way to use their talent somewhere else, we can't demonize them simply because they're not overtly quote unquote overtly using it for God. Okay.
Mhm.
Just because they're not singing, just because they're not playing in church, or just because they're not singing in church, it does not mean that they should not be able to do it. Like, you can be a janitor. You don't criticize a person for being a janitor. You don't
Mhm.
criticize a person for being a teacher. You don't
Mhm.
criticize a person for working at Walmart. So why are you criticizing a person and judging a person because they want to make secular music? That just
Mhm.
does not make sense.
Yeah.
Why are we moralizing? Why are we trying to moralize music when it doesn't necessarily have to be moralized?
Mhm.
I can see, like you said, if it's extremes, if your music's about killing people, right? And you're talking about your personal experience of
Mhm.
killing somebody, that's a problem. But music is supposed to be something of expression. The truth
Yeah.
is that there are many of us who have real experiences. We we lust, we get angry, and we want to fight. We at times, get happy,
Mhm.
and what that happiness does at times, it can make us want to be greedy. Like, the songs generally talk about experiences that we, even as believers, because we're still sinners,
Yeah.
we feel it. We feel it. And we have desires. And
Mhm.
so these things are simply a reflection of who we are. Music is not always a thing that is telling people to do a particular thing. Music is not
Mm.
always telling you, "Hey, you should do this, you should do that." No, sometimes music is just given as it helps give you words for what you're
Right.
feeling, what you're thinking.
Right.
And so I think that we can't just overgeneralize, and there is a need. There's a specific need for nuance, even in this conversation for
There is.
verse. So,
Right.
I'll say that, but the truth is, Elijah, there were indeed vampires. There were indeed vampires in this movie, and evil spirits in this movie, and
So,
there were practices in this movie that yes, Christians should be concerned about. Yes, I can say that.
like, look, I I've heard that being the major reason why Christian influencers, excuse me, are saying that we should not go watch it. And then I forgot in one of them they were saying like, "Oh, the
They
vampires
probably
quoted
voted
the
for Trump
Bible."
too. I'm just saying,
Uh,
those people that telling you not
they
to watch it probably.
overtly looked like they voted for Trump, if that makes sense. Like they were people
Say it
of
again.
color. They were people of color that were saying like, "Hey, like you you should not go and watch this movie because it highlights,
They were people of color.
yeah, Christianity, or like, oh, the vampires quoted the
Joke, by the way,
Bible."
folks. Joke, by the way. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
They were like, "Oh, the vampires quoted the Bible," and I think voodoo was a or something saved them other than like what we traditionally. Uh,
It's a movie.
Again, I don't know what happened. I'm just trying to remember what like.
So here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Right. I want to. So spoilers. Okay. So yes, there was an Irishman. All right, man who was Irish. Okay, not just white, but specifically Irish. And I
Mhm.
think what most individuals talk about is the fact that, hey, back in the day, if you did not know, you know, white people kind of sort of classified even their own.
The
Um,
Irish, yeah.
not everyone was a freeman, and that
Mm,
had the same reputation in society. Irish people, were not like when we were slaves. They were typically like our taskmasters. They weren't the owners. They weren't slave owners because they
right,
weren't considered white. They were considered white trash. That's
right.
what Irish people were considered back in the day. It like a lot of people don't know that, but
Mhm.
Irish people, just like how white people didn't consider Jews to be white at a certain point, or Italians to be
Italians,
white,
yeah.
like they also didn't consider Irish people to be white, and so at a certain point in time, they were considered what we call today white trash. And so while they were free, they had the low jobs, like
Mhm,
being a taskmaster, working for the slave owner.
mhm,
And so, what's interesting is that the main guy, the vampire, Okay, old because he's a vampire. They live forever, right?
Mm.
And the thing about it is that he was not racist. Like the director Ryan Coogler, he identifies that he lived on a time where race was not a construct that separated people.
Mm.
However, what's interesting is that he needed help, and the first individuals who he ended up turning into vampires were white people because they were the ones
Mm.
who he came across and they accepted him, right?
Mhm.
And so he turned them into vampires. And like we said, like you identified earlier, they were playing in the juke joint at nighttime. And what attracted them to the juke joint was the music,
Mm.
right? Here's why though, because everything is a symbol. Um, if you did not know, when black people, of course, started blues,
Right.
Mississippi, where the movie is taking place, right? It was where really like the blues took off. It plays
Mhm.
such a critical role when it comes to the history of black music, right?
Mhm.
There's a pipeline between Mississippi, the South, and Chicago, the North.
Mhm.
And the reason why it's so important is because many individuals, slaves, when they became free, they migrated north because there was too much racism down south. Now, what's
Mhm.
interesting is that the individuals in the movie, Smoke and Stack, they actually they went back down to the south. All right,
Mhm.
and so they went back into the racism because they wanted to start this juke joint. They wanted to make some money, right?
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is that they're playing, and what attracts this non-racist white man is the music, because
Mm.
he sees past race. All right, even though there were individuals behind him who used to not see it, but because they were vampires, what they ended up doing is adopting a hive mindset.
Mm.
In this movie, all the vampires, kind of sort of began to think alike. They began to think like him, the main
Mhm.
the main guy, who wasn't racist. Okay, and so he came over and he was like, "Hey, we want to play with y'all. Like, we want to play." But they were like, "Nah." And specifically, using vampires is a really good analogy because if you didn't know, if a vampire wants to enter into your place, into your home
Right.
or your
Right.
home, they have to ask for permission, right?
Again, a fictional stuff.
Yes. But what's interesting is this. This is real life. Okay. So black people, we love our music. But there's also this tendency, Elijah, to when we see other people, especially white people, enjoy it too, we're kind of sort of like, oh, they like it. They get
Yeah.
it. They get us because we're
Right.
so used to white people not getting us.
Yeah.
Right. And so what ends up happening is that when they get us, there's this tendency for us to say, "Oh, you're invited to the cookout. Like you're invited. Come on
Come
in."
through. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happens is this with music, with black music, because it wasn't something that was protected by us. It's not like we necessarily had a lot of power to protect it, right? What ends up happening is that in history, white people actually came in, learned our music, heard our singers, and was like, "Oh, you
Mhm.
sound good. Oh, you see that? It's making me tap my
Tap
feet.
my feet. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's making me okay. I think
Yeah.
I know some people that's gonna want this. I know
Yeah.
some people that's
Yeah.
gonna like this.
Yeah.
What do you think about possibly playing here? What do you think about if we get some of these guys to sing these songs?"
Right.
What and this is what
You had
happened.
like big band music. Yeah. Like all that popped up. Yeah.
We had individuals like Elvis Presley,
Mhm.
who history doesn't really say this. He stole a lot of black people music, bro.
Mhm.
And there are several white bands, white groups who took black music.
Mhm.
And so what ends up happening, right, is that Irish folk, they were singing their folk songs, right? because I believe that that's where folk started. It started with Irish people. Okay. And even folk music, it's something that's been commodified and appropriated by white people. That's where we get
Mm.
bluegrass, mix
Mhm.
folk with country, right? And so what ends up happening is, as you begin to see more people becoming vampires, because once a person bites you, that bite kind of sort of symbolize that, hey, you're being injected with whiteness.
Mm.
You begin to see individuals, like want more people to get into it until no one is left. One of the things that struck me in this movie is when, they said, "Hey, we're going to kill you all tonight, right? We're going to kill you all. None of you are going to get out of here alive."
Wow.
And it is such a warning, like to how whiteness or white supremacy, right? How it can make it so that you're really not living. You really are a slave. Because even though they died, right? The individuals die, but they come back as vampires. And they come
Mm.
back as vampires who do not have free will because they're still being led by the lead vampire. So as long
Mm.
as that lead vampire is alive, their will is the will of the vampire. Their dreams is a dream of the vampire.
Wow. Okay.
All of them. And so
Yeah.
there's so much, and you see it in history today. You see it in the culture today, that there are so many individuals who don't even understand that they are actually like being puppeted by individuals with a higher agenda.
Mhm.
And so I say this all to say, we see in culture what happens when you do not properly gatekeep your community. You have
Mm.
individuals thinking that they can come in and do what they want with your art.
Right.
Hence, the beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar,
Mm. I was
where
thinking about that
Drake,
too. Yeah.
like where Kendrick represents the culture and Drake represents someone who, let's be honest, more white people rock with Drake
Mhm.
because he has assimilated to the culture. He has taken the parts that people like about blackness, and
Mhm.
made it palatable to white people.
Mhm.
I'm not like what people did in the back in the day, from back in the
Mhm.
day. And so we have individuals like him who really are pop stars rather than a true hip hop, like a hip hop star. He's a
Mhm.
pop star who raps rather than
Right.
a person who's actually for the culture and from the culture, who stands with the culture. And so we see that. And I think that what it really shows you is that, hey, we have to protect our people. Because if we don't, we'll have people like Jack Harlow coming in and thinking that they can they can they can rap when they
Mm.
really can. When they really can. They really can. We might get a couple of individuals, like Eminem, right?
Mhm.
Who
Every
who who
once in a
respect
while.
the culture,
Yeah.
right? And who finds place within the culture,
Right.
right? But you might also have some individuals who are just there to benefit off of the culture and have
Listen.
nothing to give back to it. And so what ends up happening at the end of the movie is that the main character, he ends up being considered a sinner because rather than returning to the church, he continued to play. And it
Mm.
wasn't just a juke joint, but he went on to become a very famous and prominent musician. And
Mhm.
so he remained a sinner. He remained a sinner, man.
Mm.
That was a
Mm.
whole lot. Spoiled it for a couple of people, but yeah, man, there is like there's a lot more to the movie than just
Vampires.
sin and
Yeah.
vampires.
Yeah.
Like there no, it means something. And
Mhm.
there's like this particular part in the movie that really lets you know, oh, this movie's about how the blues really, really helped black music, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because when they start singing, what they take you through is like an instance as to how certain parts of the blues, how it was influenced by certain parts of African culture.
Mhm.
And then they show you how the blues would later show up in things like R&B, how it
Yeah.
shows up in hip hop, how it shows up in like beatboxing and mixing and all these things, and even how it shows up in like church and
Mhm.
shouts, because a lot of people don't know that the shout has African roots.
Yeah.
It has African roots.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, yeah,
same
yeah.
way that like they shouted at a juke joint, literally, because at juke joints it came from African practices.
Right.
You
Right.
just you just shift the language in the same way that
Yeah.
Martin Luther shifted language, the words in hymns. We do the same thing.
Mhm.
The same thing.
Man, what is interesting to me, man, is that we can sit here and have this discussion, right? And then when it comes to, because what I'm hearing, and you can correct me, right, if I received it right, was that this is a movie that helps viewers, especially like me, right, that might not know the full history behind uh black art in that era and how it grew, right? The full idea of what the cultural nuances were at that time, and trying to figuring out and kind of tell a story through maybe what might have been a historical figure, right? But kind of adding those elements into it to make it a movie and to make
Yeah,
it entertaining to watch, right?
yeah,
To kind of give us a idea of what some of the cultural things we're dealing with now as well came from. And if this was talking about a individual, right? And if it was what I think, right, would have maybe portrayed European culture, right,
yeah,
before it was Christianized, right, and it was pagan influences. I don't think there would have been as much as of a backlash if it was like Germanic, like chanting and things like that, have in the background instead of voodoo stuff in the background. Like I
right.
think like there might not have been as much of a hey, like you need to watch out, because I do think it's like more of a hostile vibe and atmosphere surrounds a ethnic background of spirituality rather than a European ones that have like are now pretty much extinct, right?
Yeah,
So like I don't think we as a church give equal grounding on the on that level where we kind of we can give we have a more hostile environment, maybe because there's still practices that go on now in different parts of the world where it's still strong,
yeah.
and there are missionaries out there that are going through it. So I'm trying to, like, me as a person trying to understand why we kind of give lenient to cultures that are pretty much
Just say it.
extinct
Just say it.
now.
Just say
What?
it. Just say why. Just say why. You know why.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, yeah,
You know
like
why.
it. So you're right, right? There is racism involved. I'm trying to go and say, all right, because not everyone that comes out and says that
I don't want to say just
it's
race.
wrong. Yeah,
I would say
it's
white
not. I
supremacy,
think so. Yes, I.
which is why a lot of, let's say, African Americans, a number of them have either walked away from Christianity
Mhm.
completely and become atheists, or they have gone into the African
Ancestral.
spiritualism route,
Yeah.
or they have transitioned to the Nation of Islam.
Mhm.
And it's because when they think of how Christianity is taught, a lot of times by missionaries, right?
Yeah.
It is white Christianity. It's not
Yeah.
Christianity. It is white Christianity that demonizes your culture, your cultural differences, and whitewashes it. And that,
Mhm.
at least that's really what I've seen in so many different instances. Not saying that that's how it always is, because I know
Right.
I can
Right.
already see there's going to be a person be like, it didn't happen here,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
a, all right,
Yeah.
bucko.
Like you're right. Like I see it where that is what generally happens, right? And it's just because our worship cultures, we then try to implement our worship culture on the people that we're evangelizing, right? And then what I'd love to end on, and is really what do you think is a good cultural principle to have as Christians, to like, what would you say is a good biblical principle to use in this instance? Because there is a lot of people on both sides of the conversation, especially on the movie. What's a good what's a good biblical principle that you would then use? Yeah,
So
to approach it.
the text that says be of the world but not in the world.
Mhm,
I think you might have different people will have different understandings of what it means to be of the world but not in the world,
mhm,
right? I don't think that going to see a movie is you being in the world. I
mhm.
think that's you being of the world, because people of the world go and watch movies.
Yeah,
Um, you know, because I think that there's a line, there's a strong line everywhere, or
yeah,
there's a very thin and flimsy line everywhere. Many of
mhm.
us watch football, we watch basketball, Christians, right? And let's just be honest, some of them cuss, and like and I want to place emphasis on cuss, not curse, right?
Yeah,
They use profanity, they cuss. And
mhm,
the reality is I mean, like, we probably like the Bible tells us about certain words and using those certain words, yet we watch it, we watch them, like, get violent from time to time. Football is a
yeah,
very violent sport, yet
yeah,
we watch it. Many Christians watch um Mar- Marvel movies that has killing in it. They kill
yeah.
people.
Thor. Yeah,
Like, they kill people.
yeah, yeah.
So, like, where's the line? Where's the line? Is it because they're good guys and they're fighting against, but, like, what's the line? Because I would say that in this movie, like, the good guys were fighting against the bad guys, which just so happened to be vampires. So, like, what's the difference? What's the difference between those two movies?
Yeah, yeah, and that's where I don't think a lot of, if we're being honest with ourselves, a lot of conservative Christians don't have a good response to that.
And
Because
and so and so to
you can
that
watch
point,
Star Wars and say the exact same thing.
and which is why, like, what's that movie? I think it's called Hacksaw Ridge. What's that? Is that it? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, the guy was in the army, right?
right,
And,
right.
like, of course, it's based on a true story, but it's entertainment. There was
Mhm.
killing in it. Like, what the only what you like, we're okay with it because, oh, it's historical. It's historical.
Yeah,
So it's okay. Like, no, like, there are people dying in this movie and being killed by, so what makes it okay? Because
right,
these movies aren't telling you go be violent.
right.
Like, they're not. And so be in the world, but not of the world.
Mhm.
Oh, did I mix it up earlier?
I don't think you did. I don't think you said be of the world.
Okay. Like, we can like we can be in it. We can really be in the world. I think I did mix it up. But the text really says, be in the world, but not of the world. Right? So,
Mhm.
like, we can be in culture because it's helpful for us when we're trying to understand different people in culture and other parts of culture, I mean, but we don't necessarily always have to partake in all the things that they partake in.
Right.
So it's okay for us to be aware. And many times we're aware. I think where the line has to come for believers is not participating in the actions that we understand are detrimental to our walk with God and
Mhm.
detrimental to glorifying God with our actions. Because,
Right.
like you said, much early on, our goal as believers is to live a lifestyle of worship. Everything that we do, it should be an act of work. Like to a certain extent, it should be an act of worship, right? Um, or a reflection of our worship to
Mhm.
God. And so I think that you can biblical practice, you can be in the world, and that does not necessarily mean that you have to be of the world.
Right. Right. And the one thing that I would like just tag on w- with that thought is this: there are some things that I personally am not strong enough to to consume in terms of content, in terms of entertainment, in terms of just lifestyle that I personally, in my walk, in the way that I have my discernment, in my way of what I've been through, my experiences, my proclivities, right? That it might not be suitable for me, but that doesn't mean that I then have to draw the line for you as well. I think that's
Romans
where
14.
I'll, huh?
Romans 14.
Yeah. Right. Like I should be aware of when it's an individual choice and when it's a corporate choice.
That's
Uh,
really good.
yeah, and a lot of it really is us trying to put individual choices onto a corporate body where the Bible does not really give us that latitude of authority outside of a few very clear areas. And the way I think Paul says, I have become all things to all people so that some might be saved, right? He's not talking about getting you to break your principles, right? Because he was steadfast and kept all the principles that he was convicted of, right? But he was able to pick up some cultural things and
Yes.
then make his identity still in Christ, but build himself in the culture so that people, number one, respected him, knew what he was talking about, and then was able to then turn those things around, speak into culture, and then save some. So like I think about it in that sense of hey, you need to be mindful enough that when people come and ask you about these things, that you as a Christian have something to say. Because if they think that you can't speak into their culture, speak into their lifestyle, speak into what they're dealing with, you're depriving the gospel of its power.
Yeah.
And it has power to speak into every culture, every situation, and everything that we might be going through. But if your head is in the sand, you're depriving it.
And bro, that's so crucial because like here's the thing. A lot of like these Christian influencers, they're really only speaking to Christians. Like
Right.
because a lot of times how they talk, it would easily rub a person who's not a believer like the wrong way. Cause you're just like, what? Like you didn't even give it a chance. You didn't even give it a
Yeah.
chance. You know,
Yeah.
like you kind of sort of just did research to further prove as to why you should not watch it. Like if you're gonna be a good surveyor of the land, you really need to be able to see the positives of a thing and the negatives of a thing,
Mhm.
even if you don't support it.
Right.
Like as a person who's just as a person who is in the world, like you can see the positives and the negatives of anything. But if you're an individual who really is just trying to find content to further your stance as to why, people are going to be able to read through that. They're going to be able to read
Mhm.
through it. So
Yeah. 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 So man, I'm probably not gonna watch Sinners only because it's a horror movie, bro, and it's not for me. But
yeah,
for the people that did, uh I know that we might not have changed your mind on a lot of the things that you're going through or that you have an opinion on, but we would love to hear what your thoughts are because we want to just engage. We might not agree with them, but we want to just at least know where you are. And we want to at least have that conversation so that our community can become more dynamic and we don't want to be build a echo chamber because that won't be
Yeah.
good for any of us.
We want to encourage critical thinking, and in the body of Christ at times th- that is missing. That is missing. But we want to encourage it. So please, please, please engage with us, because we think that, there's like, the reality is, for this movie, and I know we're ending, for this movie, there's like, the point of the movie is to make you say, that was deep. And I need to go look up what they were talking, like, I need to look up,
Mm,
because you'll see their symbols, and you'll possibly see, hey, you'll possibly see other people who are saying, hey, we're thinking the same thing as you. Let's try to break this thing down, and let's try to see what we possibly missed. Because
yeah.
reality is if you don't watch the movie, you'll see that you're missing out on history, history that is so important. So
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for another episode of the Two Young Pastors podcast. Want to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see y'all on the next one, Jawan. It's always great to speak with you, bro. I hope you have a great week. I know that we'll be back for our next episode too. Stay tuned. Until then, y'all, we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.